He was poetry in motion. He was a master craftsman. Sports trainer Chip Schaefer worked with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant extensively. To this day, he marvels at how graceful Michael was as he moved up the floor. He once said, "What I do for a living is all about athletic movement, and I've never seen anybody else move like that. The only word for it is beautiful." He was right. There was just something different about him. In its most simplistic terms, basketball is all about putting the ball in the basket. That is the objective. In all of basketball history, we have never seen anyone score in the manner that Michael Jordan did. From the outside looking in, he made it look incredibly easy. But trust me, there was a method to his madness. When he first entered the league, the first thing everyone noticed was his athleticism and talent. Other than Julius Erving, we had never seen anyone who could hang in the air as long as he could. This gave him an advantage that no other player has ever had. Rick Tallender, the sports writer for the Chicago Sun-Times, said it perfectly after witnessing what he did to the Boston Celtics in the 1986 first-round series. It was during the 63-point outburst that basketball fans could see a new philosophy being established. Basketball coaches have always told their players to know what they're doing before they leave the ground. And here was Michael Jordan leaping into the air, soaring, without any precise notion at all of what he might do, just waiting to react to awkward situations. The air had become his ground. End of quote. From that point forward, Air Jordan had taken off in every sense of the word. The things that he could do under and above the basket were unheard of. But as it was mentioned previously, he would decide what kind of move he was executing while he was in midair. He confirmed this when he explained his thought process after Game 2 of the 1991 NBA Finals. This was after he wowed the basketball world with a spectacular move. He said, "Cliff Livingston threw it back to me, and I saw a clear lane to the basket, so I was going to dunk the ball. I exposed the ball, but then I saw the long arms of Sam Perkins there, and it was just instinct to change it. And I changed it to my left hand and was able to get it off." End of quote. His ability to change direction and glide past defenders in midair allowed us to see some of the most breathtaking moves. But the question is, when would Michael decide whether or not to drive to the rim? He talked about this after recording the second highest scoring game in NBA Finals history. This was Game 4 of the 1993 Finals when he scored 55 points on 57% shooting. This is what he said.
Well, I picked and choose my times to penetrate. When the court seems to be open, that's when I was trying to do that. I didn't really allow myself to, or allow the situation to get it within a set. Once we got in a set, the defense was alert. I did a lot of my penetration when the defense was not alert.
That was the key. Jordan was always in attack mode. The opposing defense needed to be incredibly disciplined if they wanted to erase any easy scoring opportunities in the painted area. It truly took all 5 players to stop him. If just one person was sleeping on the job, he would make the entire team pay. The reason it took a team effort was that it was virtually impossible to stay in front of him. It was common knowledge during his career that he had the quickest first step. Check out what Sports Illustrated published in 1997 when Michael was 34 years old. They had an article titled, "Quickest First Step." They wrote, "Not too long ago, this poll of one representative from each of the league's 29 teams would have been a waste of time. Only one player would have received votes, Michael Jordan. His reign as the NBA's most explosive player continues. He topped our list with 13 votes, 9 more than rookie Allen Iverson." End of quote. If they were saying this when he wasn't in his athletic prime, imagine when he was at his peak. For many fans, he had the quickest first step in league history, and it's not an exaggeration. Let's not forget that he played during an era where hand checking was permitted, but not even that defensive tactic was going to stop him from blowing by his defender. But it wasn't just his quickness that made him impossible to guard. As the league's defense grew more physical, Michael saw the need to get bigger. He needed to be able to take the punishment. Each season that passed, he looked noticeably stronger. Phil Jackson wrote something very interesting in his book titled 11 Rings. There's one chapter where he talked about the difference between Kobe and Jordan. He said, Michael was more likely to break through his attackers with his power and strength, while Kobe often tries to finesse his way through mass pile-ups. Michael was stronger, with bigger shoulders and a sturdier frame. He also had large hands that allowed him to control the ball better and make subtle fakes. End of quote. This was someone who could finish through contact and punish a rim protector who dared try to block his shot. They rarely ever succeeded. The least they could do was to put him in the free throw line, which was by design. It's the easiest way to get points, and Jordan always saw the importance of forcing the opposition to foul. There's a reason why he currently ranks 7th all-time in career free throws made. But let's think about for a second what this all means. He was taking a lot of punishment by going to the hoop this much. This means that defenses would try to pack the painted area as much as possible. The game plan against Michael was to force him to take outside shots. In the early stages of his career, this wasn't considered to be his strength. As the years went on, he improved. He admitted, however, that he was more of a rhythm shooter. He needed to take 2 or 3 steps before shooting. The next step was to learn how to shoot standstill shots. He mastered that skill as well. By the time he won his first title, he was gaining a reputation as a pure shooter. Check out what Sports Illustrated writer Jack McCallum wrote after beating the Lakers. Jordan is now a better shooter than Bird. Not from long range certainly, but from 20 feet in. End of quote. What was considered a weakness was now a strength. The shot that they wanted him to take was going in nearly every time. At Michael's peak, there was no defensive game plan that you could execute to stop him. If you were worried about the drive, he could sink 20-footers all game long. If you started worrying about the jump shot, he would easily drive by for an exciting move at the rim. You were simply at his mercy. That explains his remarkable stretch from 1988 to 1993. He averaged over 30 points per game while shooting over 50% for 5 straight seasons. Only Wilt Chamberlain was able to have that impressive streak. The difference is that all the shots he took were near the basket. Jordan was scoring from all over the court. He averaged a combined 32.5 points per game on 53% shooting. Thanks to his work ethic, he now had a skill that he could fall back on whenever his athleticism started to fade. Let's remember, it took a while for this to happen. He was voted as having the quickest first step in 1997. However, in his second three-peat run, he needed to pick and choose when he was going to drive to the rim. He needed to conserve his energy as much as he could to play at his best in the playoffs. During the mid to late 90s, he was the best post-up player in the game. For example, this is what Hubie Brown said about his post-up game. At the end of his career, Michael transformed himself into one of the best post-up players in the NBA. He was nearly unstoppable because he perfected his bump and fadeaway jump shot. That one move, never mind all the other things that he could do with his back to the basket, made him one of the most dominating post players in the game. End of quote. The numbers back up what his eyes were telling him. Let's keep in mind that the shot tracking data only goes as far back as the 1996-97 season. As this chart indicates, courtesy of ESPN, he was the best mid-range scorer on the planet. Out of the 1,100 mid-range shots he took, he converted on 49.5%. Just for comparison, Reggie Miller hit 42.4% of his mid-range jumpers on 484 attempts. This is what Jordan did while taking highly contested shots. That's why the teams discourage players from taking mid-range jumpers. You're not going to get easy looks. It takes a highly skilled and precise shooter to put up those kind of numbers while taking the least efficient shot in the game. And this was not considered Michael's peak. Expect those numbers to be higher if this was tracked before his first retirement. We also don't want to forget that Jordan was a focal point for opposing defenses. It was all about stopping him. The degree of difficulty on the shots he was making was insane, but he had the necessary skills to be efficient while making highly contested shots. No matter how hard his defenders tried, they just couldn't stop his fadeaway. Just like many people say that Kareem's sky hook was unblockable, the same can be said about Jordan's signature shot. But that was the last part of a series of moves he would make before fading away from his defender. It all starts with his impeccable footwork. It allowed him to get just enough space or even to completely free himself for a wide open shot. If he noticed you were too aggressive, he would pump fake and have an open look at the basket. He could turn on either shoulder. If he noticed a double coming, he could just spin away and convert on a baseline fadeaway jumper. The reality is that there wasn't an area of the floor where he wasn't comfortable scoring. That's what made him so difficult to scheme against. And remember, he was this dominant offensively during an era when the pace slowed down and the team's physical defensive play caused scoring to drastically decrease. In fact, from the 1993-94 to the 1999-2000 season, there was only one player who averaged over 30 points per game. It was Michael Jordan in 1996, and he nearly averaged over 50% from the field. It wasn't until the 2008-09 season that Dwayne Wade scored as many points and was as efficient as Jordan in 96. By that time, the league had made many changes to increase scoring. What Michael was doing during that time was simply unheard of. He had every weapon in his arsenal to be the most dominant scorer we have ever seen. But there's one last factor that proves that the last statement made is true. The toughest situation for a player to score is when the game is on the line. When you're a player of his caliber, everyone in the building knows that you're gonna take the last shot. For some players, the weight of the moment is too much to handle. This is where a player's mental toughness allows him to score no matter how high the pressure is. There is no question that Michael thrived in those moments. He was never hesitant. He never looked lost or scared. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he delivered time and time again. He once revealed his secret to be the most clutch player in NBA history.
No matter what the game is, or who you're playing against, you have to want the ball, the clock, the pressure. You block all that out. All you think about is what you have to do to win. That's why I love the end of the game, because it comes down to that one moment when it's all in my hands. But the ultimate test of determination comes playoff time. Those are the moments you put in the hours of practice for. Those are the ones you never forget.
He wanted the ball and he loved the moment. It takes a truly special player to have that mindset. It's no wonder that he helped his team win a national championship in college, and then he helped his team win an NBA championship with his clutch play. There is no other player who could say that they did the same thing. That is when you know that you're dealing with the greatest scorer ever. But what about you all? What do you think was the key to Jordan's scoring greatness? Do you agree that he's the greatest scorer in league history? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.